Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and all worldwide supporters of the sweet science of boxing. Champions of Champions Boxing Talk is back with knowledge and wisdom and a sexy voice if you're one lady out there, or many ladies listening right now. Well, that was a bad Barry White impression, but it's the early hours of the morning in the UK and I'm a little tired. What a night that was. Well, it had a lot of everything, didn't it? Whew. Let's start with Danny Swift Garcia and Keith Thurman. That fight went exactly the way I thought it would. The only things that were different to my initial prediction was, we have to admit, Danny Garcia has a chin at 147. He took Keith Thurman's shots. He was stunned early, but the knockdown that I predicted didn't happen. And, shall we say, the foot speed of Keith Thurman did trouble Danny Garcia. I knew it would, and I knew Keith Thurman was not going to be so reckless in this fight. There was a lot of people complaining in the audience. What did you expect? A counterpuncher that expects an attacker to come towards him to get success via a guy who is a more back foot fighter, to be accurate, now in his career more than he's ever been before. And also, Keith Thurman has watched Danny Garcia closely, right? And the blueprint was set all them years back, really, with the Amir Khan fight. Amir Khan threw that fight away. Keith Thurman knew this, and Haye, Peterson, they also showed Danny Garcia's limitations where his foot speed are concerned. He needs you to come in range and be there consistently. But here's the thing, Keith Thurman wasn't, was he? He was constantly moving. So, no knockdown from Keith Thurman. I expected a knockdown, and I expected Danny Garcia to have more trouble with Keith Thurman's power, because Keith Thurman is the more experienced welterweight. But Danny Garcia is rugged, but still very limited in the sense that he's not a good hunter. In the fight, when I felt that it was heavily slipping away from Danny Garcia, so Danny Garcia really had to begin to hunt Keith Thurman down like a Sean Porter did. But he can't cut the ring off. He was kind of more following Keith Thurman around the ring rather than making the ring a small place where Keith couldn't escape, and then Danny Garcia, try and go to the body where many people have claimed Keith Thurman is weak. But we didn't see much of that because just Danny Garcia just doesn't have that foot speed. Foot speed is a very strange thing. No doubt they've been working at it in the gym, in the Garcia camp, because these elite athletes, they go right through the repertoire, don't they? So there's no box that they haven't attempted to tick. But footwork is something that you either have in the sport or you don't. But Keith Thurman going in and out just played havoc with Danny Garcia. And Keith Thurman landed the more firmer shots. I thought his jab was better. I thought his right hands over the top was better and stunned Danny Garcia big time. I thought he also executed the uppercut well in the early exchanges. Danny Garcia's face was more marked. He, one time, or sometimes as I call him now, was putting rounds in the bag. But credit to Garcia, because he's much tougher than I thought he was. On to the judges. Here we go. They tried to screw Keith one time Thurman over, didn't they? one judge giving the fight to Danny Garcia by 2 rounds. There was 3 other individuals, one named Boss, one named Jackman, with me watching the fight. We all had the same scorecards. But these morons, these judges we have in boxing today, they didn't see it how logical people like us saw it. Everybody who is sane and watched that fight has to come to the conclusion that Keith Thurman won it. And I didn't have it close, as I said. It was at least an 8-4 fight. So there was booing in the arena because, as I said, the style matchup did not equal the equation of a war. But people are clapping all the time when Bernard Hopkins or Floyd Mayweather decide to box on the back foot and use the sweet science. But when Keith Thurman does it, ooh, it's terrible, isn't it? It's boring, isn't it? It's not a masterclass when Keith does it, is it? But, you know, when Floyd does it against Manny Pacquiao, what a genius! What a fecking double standard. I mean, come on. One rule for one and a different one for Keith? I don't think so. All-time back foot fighters, no matter who you are, should be given the credit they deserve, as well as offensive fighters, because there are many ways to win a boxing match, aren't they? There's the Mike Tyson way, there's the Lennox Lewis way, there's the Ricky Hatton way, there's the Floyd Mayweather way, you know, and so forth. So, if it's good enough for Floyd, it's good enough for Keith, it's good enough for you. So, it wasn't the most explosive fight in the world, but Keith did what he had to do. And he's the WBC champ, along with the other title he holds. Over to my country, the United Kingdom. Can you believe that event? Unreal. Unbelievable, as Gary Neville would say. David Haye v Tony Bellew, and the Magic Man, who was defeated by a body shot tonight. I think it's the end of the road now for Paulie Malignaggi, I really do. Sad thing to say, he put a good performance on against a much younger man, but it's time to do what you do, Paulie, on the microphone, because there's nobody apart from me does it better than you. No, I'm joking. But that match, it had everything, didn't it? Haye was leading, I thought, up to the 6th round comfortably. The only thing I noticed about David Haye, his timing was off. But I thought, as the fight goes on, it will improve, the rust will shake off. But I did say, if Tony Bellew was still around, going up to the mid-stages of the fight, David Haye needs to consider his future. But I also said, I can't see Tony Bellew becoming a defensive master of Bernard Hopkins. Well, I wouldn't say he became that last night, but he did better defensively early on than I ever thought he could. I thought he would walk forward in straight lines, be reckless and emotional, and David Haye would pick him off and counter him on the back foot. But although Tony wasn't winning the fight, he was giving himself a chance to succeed by getting into the later stages of the fight. David Haye was landing to the body with, a very sharp, stiff jab. I thought that was taking the gas out of Tony Bellew. Haye landed the more cleaner shots. I thought earlier on he may have buzzed Tony Bellew, but Tony took the shots, a bit like Danny Garcia. It was a night of chins, wasn't it, really? Then I thought, he's on the back foot, but he has to commit to something soon, Tony Bellew, because David Haye is putting the rounds away. And he's the faster athlete, he's the more powerful athlete, and Tony will have to get desperate, and then David will pick him off. And then circumstances intervened, didn't they? And the rumours of David being injured, well, his leg was totally destroyed in what seemed like a split second. Then the whole course of the fight changed from round 6 to the conclusion, where Tony Bellew was all over David Haye like a rash and dropped him multiple times and was then starting to win rounds that David Haye would have won, I believe, had he been fully fit. Now, a lot of people are laughing at David Haye because he was eventually stopped in the 11th round. He had no balance, and yet he was still managing to hit Tony Bellew. But in boxing, as you know, you generate your power from your legs. But David Haye's power was essentially nullified by his injury. So when he was landing on Tony, there was nothing in them shots. So Tony had basically a defenseless man up against the ropes on one leg, virtually. And David Haye was taking his shots. David Haye was standing up to the challenge. I mean, let me tell you something. I run marathons. Anyone that's laughing at David Haye right now, I know exactly what that guy was going through. Only the difference is, I didn't have a big cruiserweight hitting me in the corner when I got my injury. But when I was running a marathon, on mile 16, I felt my leg go. So I essentially had to hop in agony to the finish. And it took me a pathetic 6 hours and 18 minutes to complete. But you know something? That was the best achievement I've ever done. I've ran faster marathons, but that day I proved what steel I have as a human being. Now, anyone that wants to laugh at David Haye, that guy fought on one leg against a world-class cruiserweight for 5 rounds. And Tony Bellew could not knock him out flush no matter how many shots he threw on the corner. In fact, at times, Tony Bellew looked like he was beginning to feel tired. Now, credit to Tony Bellew. He did better than I ever thought, but I do think the injury helped. And I did predict David Haye to win, but circumstances got in the way. But Tony took advantage, and Tony did what he had to do. It's a win. It goes down in history. But David Haye has nothing to feel down about. When I look back at David Haye now, if he decides to call it a day, that is a defining moment for me. People were saying this guy has no heart, cannot fight them for multiple rounds. And he proved everybody wrong there. He lost the fight, but he was gallant in defeat despite the circumstances. He became a true warrior on the night like I always knew he was. So, for everybody that laughed at David Haye's injuries for years, they're lies, he's making things up. He didn't. They were genuine. But he showed courage and the will to carry on when adversity was getting in the way of his haymaking. And his haymaking comes from his 2 feet. But he only had one, didn't he, to deliver those shots. I told you as well, it was all a show, the bad blood between these two guys. It always is. Look at the two guys hug each other at the end. David Haye made no excuses. I'm making more excuses for David Haye than David Haye made for himself. David Haye held his hands up and he said the better man won. And Tony Bellew gave him credit for being a warrior. And now, no doubt, they're good friends. And Tony Bellew is an example that if you stick around long enough at something, be determined, be patient. Things in the past have gone wrong for Tony Bellew. The Nathan Cleverly fight he lost. He come back. He rectified it. Adonis Stevenson's takes Bellew out. It looks like all is lost. Then he wins the WBC Cruiserweight title, doesn't he? Then he waits in the David Haye fight. He's patient. He's thinking, I'm still here. Round 5, round 6. I should be gone by now. Something can turn. Something can go my way. And with persistence came a break, didn't it? So I'm going to end on this. If you're having a hard time in life with anything, Pick what is your passion. Stick with it. And a storm may come. But wait. Find shelter. Sit around and keep warm. Because the storm will soon go out. And the sun will shine for you. It's just a matter of being persistent, patient, and Definity can be your friend, like it is Tony Bellew tonight. So congratulations, Keith Thurman. Congratulations, Tony Bellew. Congratulations, David Haye. It wasn't a victory on paper, but it was a moral victory because you took your lumps like a man. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. This is Championship, the Champions of Champions Boxing Talk. I'm out.